The floor is yours, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly, for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
And thank you to Monroe Rotary Club. I am so excited for this wonderful opportunity to talk with you guys today about mental health, wellness, and personal development. Now, this is an important topic because there's so many people out there that are impacted by mental health. Now, to give you a quick statistic to start off the conversation, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, over 50 million Americans are living with a mental illness. That's a lot of people. And if you think about it from the grand scheme of things, this, in terms of our nation's population, over 300 million. So if you look around to your partner and friend or family member, and you might know somebody that is impacted by mental health and mental illness. And so with that being said, I definitely go into that in terms of my story, my background. I was diagnosed with a condition called bipolar disorder. And so I've had to learn how to really change my dynamics of how I live my life, finding innovative ways to be successful and to change the direction of my life so that I can inspire myself to going through these challenges that have helped me go through a lot of difficult situations that I've come out on top and really learned my lessons from failures, learned lessons from going through challenges that have really a lot of people can relate with. And so with that statistic out there, I just wanted to introduce that because there's so many people out there that if you look around, you don't see the mental health being talked about as much as like physical health, which is important. Both are important, but on the mental health aspect, it's very important because of the fact that you are like constantly using your brain for behavioral health. That's what they use the terminology for behavioral health when you have a problem or a challenge with your mental health. And so kind of to give you a bit of a perspective of my story, my journey, I was diagnosed with this condition at age 19. So I'm 26 now, and I've gone through a lot of challenges, a lot of pain and just difficulties and trials and tribulations that have really challenged myself and really motivated me to at times in my life where I was questioning myself, do I give up or do I keep going? Do I believe in myself and find that passion to live for another day? Not that I was going in terms of a really horrific situations, but I've gone through some horrific situations which a lot of people can relate to in this room, which I'm sure that the empathy that really I'm encouraging you to unveil in your hearts and your minds today so that you can really make that connection point on something that can help give you a takeaway from this speech today. So with that being said, I know that was a little bit of an introduction, but I think it's important because I wanted to be transparent and honest and really a leader in the forefront of mental health for influencers. So with that being said, there's 5 different components that I'm going to be talking about today. Step 1, develop self-awareness. Step 2, confide in someone you trust. Step 3, take charge of your life. Step 4, accept change. And step 5, be patient for changes to come. So starting with step 1, develop self-awareness. This is a tangible example that I did in my life about 3 years ago when I was going through my challenges and starting to embrace my realities of myself and embracing my ability to make a difference in other people's life. But because of that experience of trying to change the trajectory of my life, I decided to move out of Bellingham, which I'm currently living in now. I moved out of Bellingham and I moved to Seattle, Washington. After that, I moved to Long Beach, California, Southern California, where I would then lived and continued to live life to the fullest of my abilities with the challenges that were, that life unveiled with me. So with that being said, some of the challenges that are involved with developing self-awareness are taking calculated risks. There's many times out in life where people, I've found that if you don't put yourself out there to try and find an actual path towards success, towards fulfillment for your dream, for your goal, for your passion, then it's up to you to make that change. And so for those that are working on a mental health recovery, including myself, that has been in recovery from this condition, bipolar disorder, there's a lot of people that can relate to that experience and that mindset, that shift of mindset that you can really start to unveil with your ability to believe in yourself. So some of the ideas that are involved with developing self-awareness came with, a strong self-esteem, strong believing in your gut instincts as well. Those are a couple of key components regarding to the developing self-awareness aspect, because of the fact that when you have a strong belief in yourself and a strong self-esteem, there's many times that you can step up to the plate and say, you know what, this is a challenging experience that I'm going through. This is a challenging crisis or time that I'm experiencing in my life right now, but I can get through it. I believe in myself because I've gone through so much thus far. So I've, in my challenges, writing this book of Come Back to Success, Relentless Commitment for a Better Tomorrow, and so many other experiences, being on stage for over 2 years now, starting out in Southern California, has really given me a lot of hope to really be an inspiration to other people. So I know that was a little bit of a perspective for developing self-awareness, but the second point, let's transition to that. Confide in someone you trust. So this is more focused on what everybody can do when you are really going through some type of challenge with your mental health. But the problem with this is I found an example specifically. I was studying abroad in 2015. I came home and was depressed and just going through a lot of challenges. And I was seeing a therapist openly, but as a result, I wasn't getting the right feedback because I wasn't applying myself to the conversation. I wasn't applying myself to asking for the help. And that's the problem with a lot of people in this world today who are struggling with their mental health. They don't know how to ask for help, or they're too, just the perspective for me is, from the way I look at it, is I was too grown up in this environment, in this culture that told me, no, you can do it by yourself. You don't need help. And as a result, I continued to down spiral and ended up in the hospital, age 19, with the bipolar disorder diagnosis. And so with that being said, there's a lot of challenges that have come through that. And so I've learned that by confiding in the right people that you can trust, to whether it be a therapist, a mental health professional, a parent, a friend, these are some pivotal examples of people who you can just be open and be courageous with yourself if you're going through some type of challenge and struggle with your mental health, and asking yourself, okay, how am I feeling right now? Who would be somebody that I could confide with, that I could trust, that gives me more feedback and perspective, hope, so that I can change my life for the better? Because you matter. There's a lot of people out there that, they don't think that they have that self-worth in themselves to, change their life or even be an inspiration. But your story is powerful. Your story is unique, just like mine is. And so kind of that, I think that really sums up the confiding in someone you trust portion. However, with taking charge of your life, this is another important part to think about. So taking charge of your life, I'm thinking about back in 2020 when I was moving to Seattle, Washington at the time. And so Seattle, Washington, I was working at other positions while simultaneously writing this book, while trying to have a dream to believe in myself and find contentment to make a difference in other people's life. And so through my story, because I was 19 at the time with the diagnosis of bipolar disorder, there's a lot of history that's gone on with hospitalizations, halfway house, mental health treatment programs, all these lists of things that I've gone through by myself. And I had to do it by myself. And nobody was there to support me when I was in a hospital bed or whatever. And just obviously you have the doctors and people like that who could help give you support. But taking charge of your life, that's the topic that we're on right now. And I'm talking about this as an example to give you more feedback so that you can really find how accountability comes into play with this. When you take charge of your life, one of the fundamental key components to building success and building a sustainable lifestyle, to changing your overall results in life, is having self-accountability. So I've learned this, going through different challenges, and for myself, in reflection of, my early young adulthood life, I wasn't accountable for myself. I was like always just like trying to pass the buck, or just getting without giving, and finding that balance between how you can provide value to other people and having that accountability for yourself is really what it all boils down to. And that's eventually what's going to help you change the trajectory of your life, giving other people hope, giving yourself hope for yourself, and helping yourself with the proper self-esteem and the proper approach that helps give you more of the ability to change the trajectory of your life, and believing in yourself. That's something that I didn't have. I've had that for a majority of my life, as you can tell now, because I've been able to, done so much in my life thus far, and it's only getting better. But I can tell you right now that it's taken years to develop that, to have that inner belief, and really focusing on embracing what's the reality of life, what's working and what's not working, and regrouping and taking massive action on a daily basis to achieve that specific goal in your recovery, or even whether it be a specific tangible goal in your career path as well. Okay, so that was a lot of information, but taking charge of your life, that is those are all really vital components, and I really just speak highly of these steps because I've created them and I've lived by them to help me develop more success in inspiring the next population as well. So, step 4, accept change. So when you accept change, I'm going to talk about this example as well to give you a reference point to think about so you can see where I was at and where I've overcome and how I've overcome to become the best version of myself and being on the path towards success and towards really making a difference in other people's life. And that's really the bottom line, is like if you're not happy with yourself and not making a difference and making an impact to other people, then what's your purpose? And that's the problem, is a lot of people that are struggling with their mental health, they lack purpose. For so many times in my past, there's been times when I've struggled with like, am I worth being a motivational, a mental health speaker? Do I have what it takes to be somebody that can encourage people, to give people motivation and direction and feedback? And I believed in myself consistently, even when there was times when I didn't have that. Even when the times when it felt like there was like hopelessness, and like I was in the hospital or going through another mental health recovery, you still believe in yourself. You still have to tell yourself every day that it's possible. So on that note, accepting change. 2017, I was in a halfway house, and this is, for those of you that don't know what a halfway house is, it's like a mental health treatment center, but it's for people with like severe mentally illness or mental health challenges. And it was not the right place for me to be in, but guess what? I had to accept change. I had to accept the realities of what I was in and find contentment in my heart and belief in myself to overcome this struggle, overcome this adversity, because this was such a foreign place for me, and I felt like I wasn't able to connect and relate to a lot of people in this environment. And so because of that, it fortified my brain to tell me, you know what? In times like this, when you're talking to people about your story, people that can relate to either a hospitalization or a mental health treatment program that is mental health related, there's a lot of people that go through similar struggles. And so finding the fine line to make that connection point with other people and giving yourself that ability to say, you know what, they've gone through something similar, so I can maybe gravitate to what they're saying or hearing what their perspective is that could give me hope, that could give me direction. And so many people out there in this world are just, struggling to try and find their path. And so I'm definitely on this path by myself, but I have a lot of support at the same time, because I have the purpose-minded, goal-oriented, which is the mental health community. As I mentioned earlier, over 50 million Americans are struggling with mental illness. So that's step 4, accepting change. But then the last point that I'll bring up before we move on is finding your own lane. That's really another important thing to think about. When there's people out there that are struggling with their mental illness or just recently having a condition diagnosed, a lot of people like wander, and that's what I did at a young age. I wandered a lot. I was struggling to find my purpose, but because I kept wandering and kept going and kept finding my path, eventually, also my faith in God has provided a lot of guidance in me. But because I was persistent, it helped me gain more clarity on what I want to do for the rest of my life. The man I want to become. And once you start to really find that clarity, folks, it's incredible. It's literally so rewarding, because you don't have to have other people telling you what to do, or have other people telling you how to live your life. Instead, you can tell yourself inwardly and start with your heart and with your mind and telling yourself, hey, Brandon, you know what, I can be an author, or you know what, I can be a mental health speaker, or X, Y, Z. And so that's the hope and inspiration that I can hope to provide for you all today, that will give you much more motivation and inspiration to really chase your own goals and dreams. And whatever age you're at in your life, whatever age group you're in your life, you can always make a difference to help making a change for yourself as well as the people around you. So finding your own lane, that's a really valid and clear point that I needed to really stress just now. However, we're going to move on to the last part, which is being patient for changes to come. Okay, so when you're being patient for changes to come, you're giving yourself the ability to say, okay, well, here's where I'm at, but here's where I want to be, like 2 to 10 years, however many years down the road. And if you ask yourself these questions about, okay, what's the goal in mind for me to achieve? This my end goal? Perfect example. About 2 years ago, when I was living in Long Beach, California, and I was kicking this business off, and starting to speak actively to other people and other audiences. My first speech was at Thunder Studios. This is in Long Beach, California. Thunder Studios is a giant production company, and I was a janitor for them. That's why I was able to get connection to get on stage. And so I coordinated a speaking engagement. 3 people showed up. And after that, I was like, wow, this is going to take longer than I thought. And so it's just like, after time and time again, I had to continue to be patient and be present with myself and telling myself, you know what, eventually I will be on stage again, or eventually I will be able to motivate other people. And so then there was other examples where, as time progressed, other opportunities started to arise. And since those opportunities arose, I was like, you know what? What's stopping me now from keep going, from keep progressing and being persistent in my faith towards this business and towards the goal, which is to help the mental health community and people who are needing inspiration around mental health. And so with that being said, there's been a lot of challenges that I was able to endure through, in terms of being able to be patient for changes to come. And so my encouragement and hope to you guys all today is, if you're going through some type of mental health challenge and struggle and needing direction, recognizing that if you're suffering or struggling in the moment right now, it's not permanent. It's going to pass. There's going to be times and challenges in your life where you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this really sucks. But if you can just stick to your own guns, stick to your own guts, as I mentioned earlier, with self-awareness and with having yourself the right clarity and the feedback to help you change your life and believe more in yourself, rather than just not believing in yourself. The opposite is just, it's so detrimental. And that's another thing that comes into play with, like, surrounding yourself with the right people. Surrounding yourself with the people who are giving you upliftingness, positivity, love, respect. And if we are able to navigate through life with the people in our lives to help give us more clarity, you will be much more happy and much more in alignment with your purpose. So that was step 5. Be patient for changes to come. And then I'm going to wrap up with the 5 points again, which is step 1, develop self-awareness. Step 2, confide in someone you trust. Step 3, take charge of your life. Step 4, accept change. Step 5, be patient for changes to come. And lastly, God has been the one that has helped me self-sustain myself during times of trouble and need. And I believe in myself. I believe in you guys. Go get it. Go do it. Thank you. There we go.
So, now we have time for some questions.
Yes. We'll keep the cameras rolling.
Okay. So, Brandon, what was the turning point in your life where, I mean, I get where you were working at and all this, but to just take that leap, I mean, that takes a lot of strength to do something like that. So, was there just one person,
What do you mean?
So was there one particular individual or somebody that kind of helped you to realize this, or was this just only yourself?
Only myself, and obviously, as I mentioned, my faith in Christ is something that has helped me self-sustain myself.
Yeah. Okay. And then writing a book, to sit down and just write a book.
Yes.
I mean,
come back to success.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
3-page essay. Like,
Made it. Oh, yeah, we've done the 2-3-page essays. So when did you write this book?
So I published the book in 2021. For the process was, lengthy. Start to finish, it took a year and a half. So.
some people take years to write a book, a year and a half. That's amazing. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some help from a friend who was able to help with editing and revising, and then I self-published it on Amazon KDP. So. Yes.
Do you do any kind of speaking for like any youth or anything like that? I feel like like I totally agree with everything that you were saying. I know some of that I try to communicate with my kids, because I think with the youth, they tend to think like you said, this is gonna be it forever, and it's hard to get that mindset. It's gonna pass.
I haven't done any engagements yet, but I also do like Sunday school, and talking to the kids and mental health a little bit is very, they're very responsive. Yes.
Yeah, I was just about to say kind of along the same lines as James's point of I think it's really important for students in the public school system to hear from younger voices on this issue, because they're just surrounded by so much expertise and older people than them. I think they sometimes have a difficult time relating to others, especially on this topic. So I guess my encouragement to you would just, I think, reaching out to school districts and seeing what their interest is there is, I think it's just super important for youth to hear from young adults. Hey, I was at a place, and similar to you maybe, and that age, and now here I am, I'm speaking in front of people. I have my own business, I wrote my own book. So I love your message, and I think young people need to hear it.
Thank you.
I mean, go ahead, Lee.
I wholeheartedly agree. And as a matter of fact, and I don't know if anyone shared this with you when you came to our club today, but the Rotary theme for this year, and our Rotary years start July 1st, the Rotary theme for this year is create hope in the world. A lot of times our overall Rotary motto is service above self. So as business people, community leaders, Rotarians are servant leaders, okay? Every year there's a new theme when we get a new Rotary International president. His passion this year, because his brother didn't make it through mental health challenges, and that's why his message this year, and knowing that we're in an incredibly hurting world right now, and young people especially, were really affected by COVID because of the connection. They couldn't have connection with their peers. They couldn't have connection with their school. They quite often couldn't connect with people that they teachers, other community leaders, because we just couldn't do that due to the pandemic. So there's a whole generation of people that haven't been able to do this. Now, with that being said,
that's true.
I work in senior living, and there are a lot of seniors that have had mental health issues that they never really dealt with because back then we didn't talk about it. It would be very unusual for a 26-year-old person 50 years ago to stand up and say, this is my story, and this is who I am now, and this is where I'm going. They would just get in, whether it's abusive or toxic relationships, but then those relationships would last 40 or 50 years. So there are more and more seniors that come to my community that have diagnoses, actual clinical diagnoses, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, different things where or even just depression. So much anxiety and depression that the generation before really didn't talk about. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Because there's so many people you're going to reach through this. And it's perfect timing for you to be here for this Rotary year. So thank you. Your book is obviously for sale. Yes?
Yes.
We buy this. How much?
$20 a copy.
Perfect.
And then you guys, Brandon spoke to some of you. He has a card. He'd love feedback and input. And then we're going to put those into a little bag, and then he'll grab one out, and you've got
Yes.
a copy of your book.
Yep. Free copy for the person that we draw from.
Brandon, your personal story is what makes this so impactful, and you presented it very, very well. So hats off to you, because it's not an easy thing to do. And I know you've been doing this for a while, so it was really terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you
Yes.
have a business card? I work with teens right now who are young moms
Oh gosh, yeah, you
and
should
things.
get together.
And I also have younger children I work with through Take the Next Step. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it.
We can exchange contact
Yeah, that would be
information
awesome.
after.
I think it'd be really great to talk to the young moms and their spouses, husbands, boyfriends, slash, etc. No, but it was a great talk today, and I really appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Brandon, did you ever find a time, because I know I have friends that have bipolar, that struggle from bipolar disorder and whatnot. Some that have gone down a path of drugs.
Oh yeah, there's a
How did you stay off of that path?
well, I just music and exercise. In Bellingham, where I live, Lake Patton is a place that I just go to help run. Even when I don't feel like running, I walk, and it just gives me something to do. Even when I felt like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just really upset with myself, or a situation that happened in the day, getting outside for your physical health can really benefit your mental health at the same time. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, that's you reaching out to the youth, like they said, reaching out to the youth and finding ways that they don't follow down a path of drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because there's dual diagnosis when it's very common in this world today with people who have been diagnosed with a mental illness, and they end up having an addiction problem as well. And so that's where a lot of people find that in like recovery and like a treatment center. I've never had an addiction to alcohol or drugs, but at least I can, and even with like smoking cigarettes, things like that, a lot of people do that in mental health because of their challenges, that they are coping strategies that just need to be corrected if they're able to shift their mindset to different ways of coping, like whether it be exercise, feeling content and happiness within yourself, finding purpose. Those are the avenues to really change the lives of people that are struggling with their mental health.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that's a lot of times is they don't realize that there's other avenues for them to reach out into, and having you go speak to the youth, I think that's going to be huge, like Zach was saying and stuff, because a lot of times they just turn there because they don't know where to go, or they don't want to admit they have mental issues.
And not only that, but in schools, a lot of things, like in at least my experience in being in a health class, was very much they preach that your circumstances, your diagnosis, and they're not doctors, and they don't know what they're talking about outside of teaching, truthfully. I mean, I love teachers, I respect them immensely, but they can't diagnose people. And the problem is they turn around and they diagnose 30 kids and say, you felt depressed last night, you probably have depression, and then they give them no outlet.
Or the kid starts to believe that,
Right.
and then once they start to ruminate in that self-thought, then that's where the direction that you go.
So they come
which
home
is
and
sad.
like, I have depression, I have no outlet, I have no doctor who tells me, I have no
Yes.
medication, I have no counselor, so now they've, either one, they actually have it, or two, they believe they have it, and they have nowhere to go. So it's important for someone who actually knows kind of what they're talking about in that, to be talking to them
Yes.
instead of just saying, you have depression.
Sorry, Sue had something.
So, have there been organizations that you've utilized to give you the support in some of these areas so that, I would say if we know or we think that, they can be channeled to some place?
Yeah, nonprofit organizations that are mental health organizations, they are, they're around the country, but they're definitely underfunded. But still, there's a lot of opportunities to ask for help if, the child or the adult is still willing to ask for help. And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like, if you're not willing to ask for help, then you're not going to help change your life.
Just like personally for you, you talked about your 5 steps, and I think you said counseling with a professional was that a part of that process?
Oh yeah, so I still see a counselor as well that helps me with my life, because it's so it's helpful to get feedback from somebody. And not everybody, I'm not saying everybody has to go see a counselor now, but I'm just saying that some people might gravitate towards that because getting that extra perspective is very helpful. Yeah.
And do you remember how old you were when you knew something wasn't right?
Well, yeah, so what happened was when I studied abroad, I returned home post-study abroad trip, and I was depressed for like 6 months, and then I was not willing to ask for help. And even seeing a therapist, I wasn't applying myself in the conversation, and then things continued to down spiral, and then I landed in the hospital with a bipolar disorder diagnosis.
So this really came on, you feel, later in life. I have a grandson who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when he was 6.
Oh, wow.
That was why I was wondering. He was on medication, and he's doing very well now, but he struggled in school, really struggled.
So
Yeah.
were there missed signs maybe when you were younger that?
No, actually, it's interesting. Somebody's asked me that before, and I would say I don't have, my youth was very lively, and I was successful. I mean, I was all-state player, soccer, and so I don't have any type of really major mental health issues when I was in my youth.
So it's not something that necessarily, like you said, it's just, it's for that moment. It could be something that's brought on.
Yeah, it could be like in NAMI says
later.
It could be a trigger, some type of trigger that triggers your life and changes your life forever, because then you have something that you have to manage. And even then, I wasn't being accountability. That's what I brought up in today's talk, because I wasn't being accountable for myself, and my condition, I was in denial. I was no, I don't have this condition, and that's what a lot of people are struggling with at times. They're no, the doctors are wrong, or just they don't want to help themselves. And so that's what it requires. The word comes to mind is radical acceptance. So that basically means you're radically accepting your diagnosis and radically accepting your circumstances. And when you do that, it's so much more clear and helpful for you to work through your problems than just to be swiping them under the rug. When you're honest with yourself about what you're presented in front of you, what's the problem, and facing it head on.
Well, and I think now we're not which is great, we're not as in fear of talking about mental health. And I watch the Today Show every morning, and I know Carson daily on there always talks about his struggle with anxiety and all that. And it makes it more real, and having people like you out there talking about it is wonderful. So thank you very much. And then also, where do you see yourself 5 years, 10 years?
5 years from now, doing this. 10 years from now, doing this and training people to do it.
Well, we love having you. Any other questions? Oh, Sue's got one.
Not a question, but a comment. So Tom and I passed Brandon on our way in, and he was on his way out.
Yeah.
And Tom turned to me and he said, "There's a successful young man." It was just, right away, it was so clear that you were exactly who you exude. So
Thank you.
Well, when I was
very much.
walking in, I was carrying my stuff, and he was carrying the box, and I said, "You've got to be with Rotary." And he goes, "I'm Brandon." And I said, I said I can tell, so thank you. Yeah. So
I was just going to commend you on talking about your faith in Christ, and I think we live in a culture that has stepped so far away from Him, and it's, you don't hear a lot of people that talk about their faith in God and how far it's brought them, and He's the center of my life, and I've raised my daughter to be the center of her life, and I commend you for having the courage to say that out loud. Sometimes it's scary to say that in this culture. Sometimes you feel like you're going to get daggers thrown at you, so yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
You know, and sometimes if you think about how things used to be in the past, I don't know what statistics are, but I have a lot, when I'm bringing 80-year-old people in, they're like, well, we used to have our church. We used to have our church. And I think there's so many of us that had, gosh, yeah, we go through those times in our life, not with a clinical diagnosis, of an actual diagnosis, but where we go through these times, but you had your church family and you had people around you that, you just kind of went through things with. And you're right, we just, for whatever reason, we've gotten away from that where, we support each other.
The devil is alive.
Chief wants to say something.
Yes.
First, I want to commend you on your journey and your continued journey, because it will be a continued journey. But being in the position where you're at, being a learner, studying, your journey through mental health, an author, transforming, all this recognition that you have of where you're at in life and doing something positive with it. In the context of having been in that firsthand through the COVID pandemic, how have you seen, having all these connections, COVID impacting or changing the mental health situation? Whether it's treatment or are there more people? What's the dynamic? The takeaway?
With COVID in mind and everything, I would say a lot of, for example, you see therapists now working through telehealth, and same with doctors as well. So a lot of, even with the Zoom world is now emerging. So we're, becoming more virtual doctor's appointments and virtual therapy appointments. And it's helping people, hopefully, but if it's not helping people, then they need to ask for an in-person meeting or conversation with their therapist or doctor, provider, because it's up to the person. If they're not receiving the care at the level that they need, then they need to ask for help to correct that. And so that's pretty much what my answer for the COVID world.
I just wonder if that's a sign that there's an increase in need, or we're providing better access for people.
Oh man, yeah.
I don't know, because I have a son that does the mental health, but I also see people that I deal with on a daily basis, and the access for the average person or people without the means is very limited. And so it's kind of a strange dynamic. People that have insurance and support can access it, but there seems to be a huge shortage.
I found by applying yourself more to every situation that's possible, you will eventually find your path, your right way. Because there's been times where I'm receiving not the best level of care or quality. I've been in some situations with mental health, the system, where it hasn't been helpful and beneficial for me at the time, but I still, I persisted on, and eventually I found my way, and now I'm, working with the right team that's helping me stay on pace towards success.
One of the things that I don't think anybody in this room would do it, but you hear other people say, I'm feeling really sad, or something's wrong, and the comeback has traditionally been, oh, you'll be okay, just go for a walk, you'll be fine, and not acknowledging that there is something wrong, and then maybe you can help by listening, just like you said, have somebody that you can talk to, but when it's a matter of being brushed off for whatever reason, it might just be being uncomfortable. and not wanting to discuss something like that. But it's so necessary, and you really brought that to the forefront.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe you connect with medical professionals or counselors, that your book would be helpful to their people as inspiration. Especially I'm thinking of young kids, and for the first part of the question. The second, it seems like kids are so entwined in YouTube and those kind of, it just seems like it would be a way to kind of reach a lot of people with your message.
I also have a YouTube channel.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you have to Google, just put that in?
Brandon Burbank.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
I think I got sued to talk about that.
That wasn't helpful.
I think they're almost done on.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I think that it's.
I need to.
Oh,
What's that for?
These books. I'm buying books.
Oh, nice.
I
Okay.
know exactly who I'm giving this to.
I will sign it for you too.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Here,
And is there other ways of taking payment if we don't have our
Venmo as well.
Venmo?
Yes.
Okay, just look you up on your name. Is it
Yeah, I have a business account. Come Back to Success.
Come Back to Success on the Venmo?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So let's do the drawing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you.
All right.
Chief-
Did you want to finish up?
Hold on,
Okay.
Chief Snowman is out. Here.
Okay.
And Sue. I think it's important for you to keep continuing your
All right.
and reaching out to the youth.
Yeah.
You have such a platform for the youth out there. There's all of us trying to talk to the youth. It's not the same. So look, I like Zach said, look for those opportunities.
Okay.
Somebody to reach out to. I mean, think about you're both of you. You're the most recent out of high school. Was there ever really anyone that came and talked
Thank you.
like him, your school, or about like a platform?
It was just always teachers, and like that's why I talk about like I remember telling, and this is kind of personal, but I remember telling this, I'm very blessed to not have depression or anxiety. Like I'll be very upfront about that. I've never proclaimed to have it because I wouldn't ever want to do something like that. And I have a lot of people who are. And I told a teacher one time that I was like really anxious about something that was coming up, and she was like,